Being a hardcore coaster enthusiast can be kinda rough. For one, to ride all the biggest and best stuff out there, you need to invest a lot of time and money in travel. It's definitely not a cheap hobby, but you can save up and you can get there. That is, if you make it there on time. There's one thing we coaster enthusiasts don't have: a time machine. Once coasters are gone, they're gone, and no amount of time or money can bring them back. Having been born in the 80s, I've had the advantage of riding some defunct coasters over the last 25 years, but there are tons that I never got to. Today, let's go around the world and find the 15 defunct coasters I wish I could have ridden. First, a couple coasters I did get to ride, just not in their best form. Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain opened in 1978, and it was shut down after its first season because apparently it had too much airtime. It was reprofiled to calm it down, but it still had the double down near the end of the ride. That was finally leveled off in 1991. I didn't get to ride this until 2000. I love Colossus, but I definitely did not get to ride it in its best form. Next, Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. When this opened as Superman Ride of Steel in 2000, it had those glorious T-bars. These are super open and allow some great airtime. After an accident in 2004, the lap bars were given bars on the side and shin guards. When the ride was rebranded as Bizarro in 2009, they introduced the awful U-bricks, and by the time I got to ride this in 2015, this ride was just a shell of what it once was. These rest on your legs and kill about 90% of the airtime the ride has. One more honorable mention: Zingo at Bell's Amusement Park. Ever since I moved to Tulsa, I've been looking at the history of the area, and between 1968 and 2006, we had this awesome looking PTC wooden coaster. It looks like a pretty basic figure-8 layout, but I would love to have this thing in my hometown, but I missed it by a long shot, being removed 14 years before I moved. I also want to mention Dododampa at Fuji-Q Highland. This ride is really in limbo. It's been closed for a year and a half. There have been reports about it hurting people's spines, and I don't know if it'll ever reopen, and if it does, if it'll ever be the same. That launch is something that's high on my bucket list, and I don't know if I will ever experience it. But since it's not officially defunct, it can't be on this list. Number 15, Ultra Twister at Six Flags Astroworld. Opened in 1990, closed in 2005. This was somewhat popular back in the 80s, a togo coaster with an 85-degree drop, inline twists, and no turns. It uses a switch track to send the train backwards and back to the station. This was the only one to grace America, and I really should have gone to ride it before it closed in 2005. This isn't too painful because I can always ride one of the few still open in Japan, but that would require me to go to Japan, and who knows how long that'll be. You talk about a unique ride experience. I would love to ride one of these before the last one shuts down. Number 14, Afterburner at Wonder Island. Opened in 2007, closed in 2016. This is a coaster in Russia, a variant of their Screamin' Squirrel model. Only one of these is still open, Man-O-War at Mysterious Island in China. This is wild enough, but Afterburner was different. It would rise up 150 feet, then enter a vertical drop that wrapped under itself into a saxophone element. Unlike the others, this one actually has a turn halfway down. Then it repeats the saxophone element before the ride ends. It's really short. It looks like something you would build in Roller Coaster Tycoon or Roblox when you're trying to save space and money, and it's probably not all that fun. But any coaster that looks like that, I wish I could have ridden. Number 13, Wildcat at Eudora Park. Opened in 1930, closed in 1984. When reading about people's favorite coasters back in the 70s and 80s, one name kept popping up: this PTC wooden coaster in Youngstown, Ohio, Wildcat. I don't know much about it. I don't hear anyone talking about it, but this was a major wooden coaster with a double out and back figure-8 layout. This was damaged by fire in 1984 and never reopened, and who knows if that would still be open today had that never happened. But it would have been great to have another park to hit and ride another major coaster between Cedar Point and Kennywood, and see if this lived up to the hype. Number 12, Hypersonic XLC at King's Dominion. Opened in 2001, closed in 2007. Of all the coasters on this list, this is the one that I was the closest to actually riding. My first trip to King's Dominion was in 2008, so I missed it by just one season. This was the first S&S coaster, the first coaster to use a compressed air launch, taking riders from 0 to 80 in 1.8 seconds. That, and the 165-foot top hat with all that airtime, is why it's on the list. The reason why it's not higher is because I've ridden other coasters with great launches and great top hats. This one may have been different than, say, Accelerator or Max Force, or maybe it was pretty similar. I don't know. Cedar Fair pulled the plug on this the year before I got to visit King's Dominion. Number 11, Stingray at Ferris Wheel Park. Opened in 2009, closed in 2018. This Chinese flying coaster is kind of a second generation Vekoma Flying Dutchman, way different from the originals. This has a 2-car train, seated 4 across, and it was built on a very compact plot of land. It has a vertical lift where you're in the standing position, and then you dive headfirst into the first drop, and you start zipping around the course, including this element where you're flying, then flip up 180 degrees on your back and flip back over, which is just insane. It had almost 1,200 feet of track. There's not much to it, but what a weird experience. And it looks like it has elements you aren't going to find anywhere else. This was the only one of these ever built, and it closed with this park in 2018. Number 10. Drachen at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Opened in 1992, closed in 1998. This Aero coaster is both legendary and infamous. Aero had a very strong record of building big looping coasters in the 80s and the early 90s, but they tried to do something different here and it didn't work. It was a notorious rough ride. They had to remove a corkscrew after its 3rd season, and after 6 years, the park felt like it wasn't worth it anymore. It's very weird to me that this ride had so many issues. It wasn't that much different from the rides that made them famous. My ears and my brain may disagree, but I would love to have gotten one ride on it, just to see why it was so different, and if it was as bad as people say. Number 9. Texas Cyclone at Six Flags Astroworld. Opened in 1976, closed in 2005. I never thought much about this ride. I've seen replicas of the Coney Island Cyclone before. Some are good, some are bad, but apparently this one was different. I mentioned how Eudora Park's Wildcat was all over top 10 lists from the 70s and 80s. Well, Texas Cyclone was at the top of those lists. Even after the beast opened in 1979, coaster aficionado Robert Cartmel said the Texas Cyclone was still his number 1. It was all about the constant thrill, never letting up with slow turns or straight track, and it's insane how much this coaster was praised. That made me very curious. I never saw this as an elite coaster. Now I wish I could have gotten a ride. Seriously, I graduated high school in June of 2005. With 2020 hindsight, I really should have made a graduation trip to Astroworld and Six Flags New Orleans. Neither of them would be around 5 months later. Number 8. Mindbender at Galaxyland. Opened in 1985, closed in 2021. I want to throw another coaster into this mix, Zonga at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. These are very similar, and I wish I rode them for the same reasons, so they can kinda share the spot. Zonga had more inversions, but Mindbender was taller and longer. This Schwarzkopf stood 145 feet tall. Mind you, this is inside a mall, so that's one crazy tall indoor coaster, and it drops down 127 feet, dropping over and under a footpaths, going into 3 loops, just tearing through its course, oozing intensity, the indoor element making it more interesting. This closed in 2021 and sat there for 2 years, and now in 2023 it's being dismantled. I thought about going to Edmonton and riding this in 2019, but Edmonton is way too far north and too far out of the way for my trip, so now I will never know just how good this was. Number 7. The Ultimate at Lightwater Valley, opened in 1991, closed in 2019. This was once the world's longest coaster at 7,442 feet, following a terrain layout, rising up 2 lift hills at just over 100 feet. I know this coaster was reviled by a lot of people, and honestly, it doesn't look like a super thrilling ride, but it kind of has the same quality as the Beast. I love how it stays right on the ground. After those drops, it just rides the terrain, almost like a train ride meets an alpine coaster. This had a massive train seating 38 people, and including the lift hills, it's about a 4.5-minute ride. The park shut the ride down and removed it, saying they wanted to shift to target a more child-friendly demographic. Number 6. Ring Racer at Nürburgring. Opened in 2013, closed in 2013. Well, this only operated for 4 days, so me and just about every other person on Earth didn't get the chance to ride it. This was located in Germany, at a park within the complex of a racetrack. It was supposed to be the world's fastest coaster at 135 miles an hour, built by S&S and using an air-powered launch. When they tested this, it exploded. They made tweaks for 4 years, lowering its speed to 99 miles an hour, and right at the end of the 2013 season, it opened to the public. The complex closed down in early November as planned, and its new owners didn't want to reopen the ride for the 2014 season. It's still there, so it may ride again, but after 10 years, it doesn't seem likely. Anything that launches you to almost 100 miles an hour is something that I'd love to ride. Number 5. Moonsault Scramble at Fuji Q Highland. Opened in 1983, closed in 2000. 6 years before Magnum XL 200, Japan opened the first coaster that went over 200 feet. This was built by Misho Amusement Devices, and it looked like a Vekoma boomerang, just before that ever existed. It brought the train up 230 feet, and then released it down into a 67-foot pretzel knot, going up another spike to do it all backwards. Not only was this thing enormous, not only was it one of the most impressive coasters to look at, it pulled 6.5 Gs in the pretzel knot. This was a one-of-a-kind experience that was taken down 23 years ago. Number 4. Avalanche at Timber Falls Adventure Park. Opened in 2004, closed in 2017. I always knock S&S Woodies, but Avalanche look different. This is located in Wisconsin Dells, the same tourist area as Mount Olympus, and it's really too bad this was taken down. It wasn't very long, only about 2,400 feet, 89 feet tall, but with those short 3-car trains, it whipped around its course. I wouldn't make it here until 2020, so I missed it by a lot, but this looked like a fast-paced ride. It looked like it had good airtime, and it may have changed, but I thought about S&S and their wooden coasters. Number 3. The Bat at Kings Island, opened in 1981, closed in 1983. The first ever coaster to hang under the track, this was one of the most innovative coasters ever built. Of course, with every innovation comes a mess of problems. This was a ride meant to have the cars swing, so Aero thought they didn't need to bank the track. Less banking, more swinging. The problem was, this ran way too fast for its track profile. The cars were swinging way past the 90-degree mark, and the train was tearing the track apart on every cycle. This caused a ton of downtime, and it was a headache for Aero and Kings Island. But as a rider, I'm sure this was an amazing experience. I love a good intense suspended coaster, and this was probably the most intense one ever built. Number 2. Eagle Fortress at Everland, opened in 1992, closed in 2009. I said I like suspended coasters, and this one sounds like the gold standard. This would rise up a hill and wind its way down, picking up speed the whole way. It never seems to be more than a few feet off the ground, even when it reaches the top of its lift hill. At 3,200 feet, it's also a very long ride, the longest suspended coaster ever built. Its speed, its setting, its swing. It's really a shame this shut down after 17 years, and it seems like its speed caused the problems that needed to be fixed. Its setting made those problems hard to fix, and the park cited the economic crisis as the reason why they weren't going to try to fix it. This coaster was taken from us way too soon. Number 1. The Cyclone at Crystal Beach, opened in 1926, closed in 1946. If anyone who rode this is still alive, they're probably pushing 90 at this point. This is considered the most extreme coaster ever built, just 40 seconds from lift to brakes, and it was nothing but hills and turns over its 3,000 feet of track. They kept a nurse on site for anyone fainting after getting off. No doubt, this was the craziest coaster of its time. Now, how would this hold up to, say, X2, Intimidator 305, El Toro? Was it even crazier than those rides, or does its legend benefit from its era? I don't think we will ever know for sure, but if someone could study this ride and recreate its layout, that would be amazing. I think it can be done. Only question is, who's crazy enough to hire a manufacturer to do it? Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Batman, Salim Basool, someone make it happen. That's a wrap on this video. I tried to pick the coasters that gave a unique experience. So for example, I'm sure the Chiller was a great ride, but it's not much different from Mr. Freeze, so I don't feel like I missed out on much. Let me know what defunct coasters you wish you could have ridden, and if you rode any of the coasters on my list, share your experience in the comments below. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and want to see more content like this, please give me a sub. Also, check out the links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you're also a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.